Welcome to Unscrew the News. It's Bruce Scholl, and I have two fabulous guests that I'm excited to bring to you. I'm hoping that we can dig down deep and get into a subject that affects us all here in Alberta Anyway, I have two fantastic warriors that have been on the front lines of this battle for 4 years. They have been spreading the truth and taking the shots from left and right. They have been on the road, been in front of people. They have spoken out and inspired so many people. I am so grateful to have Dr. Roger Hodkinson and Dr. William Makis joining me today. Thank you very much for joining me, both of you.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
It's so wonderful to have two warriors like you here with me today. I'm really honored to have you join me and to discuss what I'm hoping should be really interesting. Dr. Hodkinson, to start with, the reason that sort of spurred me to invite you was a hearing that you have coming up with the College of Physicians and Surgeons here in Alberta, coming up on April 9th. And Dr. Makis and I have discussed this on a number of occasions, this organization that calls them the College of Physicians and Surgeons. But I wanted to dig into that. First of all, can you just tell us a little bit about what this so-called hearing is going to be about on April 9th?
Well, you never really know until you get there. It's a very corrupt process. They hold their cards close to their chest. They don't reveal the evidence. You're guilty until proven innocent. And their track record is one of a very abusive hearing in which they tolerate you talking. That doesn't mean to say they're listening. The implication of a hearing is that someone's listening, isn't it? No, it's merely a perfunctory process to get rid of you. There's a standard way of doing it. They call it a hearing. And actually, it's been punted until August. It was very interesting, actually. The letter that came out for the hearing said it's going to be next week. Next week for something that's been going on for 3 years.
All right.
The arrogance of these people is indescribable. Micro heads, with about 2 neurons buzzing around inside. It's absolutely amazing. So that who knows? I mean, my defense is not going to be a pissing match of this paper versus your paper. That's not the venue for that. We're dealing with idiots anyway. No, I'm going to base my defense squarely upon one foundation, which is I have a right to speak, period. And I'm not only a citizen with all the rights that are implied in that, but I'm very well trained, experienced general pathologist who's not claiming to be a vaccinologist, endocrinologist, any other ologist. I am widely read. I spend 3 hours a day boning up on what everyone else is saying, including Dr. Makis, by the way, who's fabulous at putting stuff out every day. I don't know how the heck he does it.
He sure is. Yeah.
But no, my job is to synthesize the evidence-based facts out there and translate that into sound bites for the average individual so that they can use that themselves to further destroy this dystopian nightmare that's being created. So that's my job. I'm being accused of speaking outside of my scope of practice. That's absolute bullshit. When you look at the actual job description for a general pathologist issued by the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in Ottawa, there's a very important line that they would now regret having accepted. And it's called that we have a responsibility for advocacy. Advocacy. We are expected to speak up and defend certain principles. So that's going to be the essence of my defense. I'm not going to get into a pissing match on statistics because they'll pick a paper that they have studiously dissected with all kinds of so-called experts at the university, and they'll put certain questions to me and try to make me look like an idiot. I'm not gonna suffer that. No, I'm going to tell them what I told when the College of American Pathologists got rid of me at their so-called hearing. I was a 40-year fellow of the College of American Pathologists. I said to them, it was virtual. I said to them, looking straight at the camera, I said, "You're trying to intimidate me, aren't you?" And they said, "Oh, no, we're not." "Oh, no, you got it wrong, Dr. Hodkinson." I said, "Oh, yes, you are. You know damn well you are." Click. I wasn't going to give them the benefit of executing me. I told them to basically fuck off.
Good for you. So the first question I have, and I'm guessing that any of my viewers are probably asking the same thing. So it's been 4 years and you've been speaking out, as far as I can tell, from, early on. So why now? What's going on? Is there something specific that they're targeting you for?
Oh, I see. No. I mean, well, it's terribly important that physicians like Dr. Makis and myself stand up and push back on the authoritarian control that the college has progressively acquired over the last decade or so. We're simultaneously trying to defend traditional medical ethics, but by an extension of that, protecting the public, because the public used to depend upon the college to police those two fundamental medical ethics: first, do no harm, and informed consent. Um, the public used to expect the college to do that fervently. And of course, they've lost their way now. Instead of protecting the public, they're now killing the public.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to be said forcibly.
Dr. Makis, do you have any thoughts around what Dr. Hodkinson had just said about the College of Physicians?
Well, a lot of people don't know that the colleges in Canada, the colleges of physicians and surgeons, are private corporations. I think that's the first important point. And as private corporations, they don't answer to the provincial government. So they do whatever the hell they want. I've been through a fraudulent college hearing.
Mm-hmm.
It is a completely fraudulent process from beginning to end. You're not even, presumed guilty until proven innocent. You're convicted of being guilty before you step into the room, before you actually even begin the proceeding. You've already been convicted. It's just a show trial at that point. It reminds me of those Star Trek episodes, in those Klingon courts where, you enter the courtroom and it's just a show. You've already been convicted of being guilty. They just want to make a show of it to make an example out of you. But that's what it is. It's a rigged proceeding. It's an administrative tribunal. And so they have that power to conduct their own administrative tribunals under the Health Professions Act. And so they rig these tribunals as they wish. In my case, because I had just rejected a $400,000 bribe from AHS to settle my lawsuit for them sabotaging my cancer program and killing my cancer patients, letting them, die without proper treatment. Within 6 hours of my refusal of the $400,000 AHS bribe, the college launched a complaint that led to a hearing, which then led to them holding my license hostage and extorting me and my family to force me to sign that non-disclosure agreement with Alberta Health Services. So the whole thing is completely corrupt, completely rotten, but they know they can get away with it. And here's the other point, is that they know they can get away with it because when you appeal that process, the kangaroo court, you can only appeal it back to the college.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just appealing it to a different department at the college. Initially, you're dealing with the complaints director and his lawyer, and then you're dealing with the college council and their lawyer. They work in the same building. I mean, it's the same institution. So you're just appealing back to your original abuser anyways.
Right.
And what they do, the point of that is that they drag out the process for several years, and then they just reaffirm the initial decision, make it look even more that the college got it right the first time around. And then after several years of that, you're forced to go to the courts. Well, once you get to the courts, they make sure to put you in front of a judge who used to be a lawyer for the college, who has a long history, who's built their careers sabotaging doctors and their medical licenses. And that happened to me. I was put in front of Alberta's highest judge. Alberta's highest judge at the Court of Appeal is Justice Reeducation, and she built her career with the law firm that sabotaged my medical license. She was a senior partner at that law firm in Edmonton. And I saw, going back in history, she was sitting on college tribunals sabotaging the licenses of Alberta doctors years before she was made into a judge and then put at the highest level of Alberta's court system. So it's a closed loop. You almost have like an organized crime network of people who know that no matter what they do, no matter how many patients they kill, no matter how many doctors or healthcare workers they destroy, they can get away with it. There will never be accountability and punishment for them. So it's a complete, they have a free reign to do whatever they want.
I have so many questions about, sorry, go ahead.
And during that process, the lawyers are billing to the hilt. And when you lose, which is guaranteed, it's like being in a federal court in the States, 97% conviction rate. When you fail to succeed, they bill you for their lawyers' costs, which are totally out of control.
Right.
Well, the costs are actually a form of the punishment. Right. So in my case, when they ran this kangaroo court hearing, what they did was they bribed a girlfriend of an AHS executive who was a defendant in my lawsuit. And they bribed her to make false accusations against me, that I intimidated her at some conference, that I happened to be at the same conference as she and her boyfriend, her AHS executive boyfriend, was at. And so they bribed her. They made her chair of Faculty of Rehabilitation Medicine at the University of Alberta. She had no academic background. They made her into a chair at the university. That was her payoff. A year after she testified against me. And you know who else testified against me? 4 college employees. And they ran up the bill to $75,000. Then they said, we can knock off the bill if you sign non-disclosure agreement with us and AHS. So they were extorting me, which is a violation of the Criminal Code of Canada. So I have that in documentation, that they were extorting me and my family. They said, we'll punish your family financially. We'll never allow you to practice medicine again unless you play ball with us and pay this $75,000 bill. They even gave me a deadline to pay the bill, or they would cancel my medical license for non-payment of their extortion fees, which were their legal fees that they purposely ran up during the hearing. So I said, of course, I'm not paying your $75,000 bill. So they said, okay, we're canceling your license. And that's how they did it in my case.
So you weren't, your hearing didn't actually happen. Is that what the case was? Or
no, my hearing happened. They said they declared me of unprofessional conduct or something like that. But then they attached a thing at the very end. They said, oh, Dr. Makis, you're going to have to submit to us for a psychiatric assessment for us to determine if you're even fit to practice medicine. This is like straight out of Soviet communism. This is like, you could read this and you'd be like, oh, we're in Soviet communism, with the gulags and everything. And of course, it got complicated because the courts then froze everything. And so they couldn't do that. So then they went the other route, which is the fees that they ran up to cancel my medical license. But I can tell you, you know how high the fees can get? Dr. Al Ghamdi, who was an orthopedic surgeon who got into trouble with AHS executives and managers in his hospital, he fought the college for over 10 years. They ran him through a college hearing that was several weeks long, and they ran up the penalties to, I think it was close to $1 million. And so they suspended his license for 3 years for not getting along with his hospital managers. They suspended his license for 3 years, ran up the college legal fees to $1 million, and then told them you have to pay the $1 million before we give you your license back. That's how bad it can get.
Never mind the pedophiles that they allow to continue and hide them and protect them from the system. This is crazy. Sorry, Dr. Hodkinson, go ahead.
No, I was just going to amplify what Dr. Makis said about the Gulag treatment, the Jordan Peterson treatment.
Right.
You need,
Reeducation.
yes, exactly. There was another classic case in Saskatchewan, Dr. Francis Christian. He was a general surgeon, uh, and he had a faculty position, active teaching, excellent surgeon. And when he ran adrift of the faculty, um, because he dared to stand on the street in a demonstration demanding a stop to children getting this so-called vaccine, he actually taped the conversation that took place between, I believe it was the dean and himself, or a senior person in the faculty. And she said to him, and it's in the public record, she said to him, quote, "Dr. Christian, you seem sick. We can help you." Yes, that's the Gulag treatment. What they didn't know was that Dr. Christian happens to be a professional student of Stalin.
Oh, really?
They were subjecting him to the very treatment that he was so familiar with from the Gulag. These people are truly criminals,
Do
using
you mind if
all
I
the
just bring up?
levers,
Do you mind
using
if I just
all
bring
the
up a screen
levers at
share?
their disposal, using every lever at their disposal to try and intimidate you, to make you poorer. Yes, there he is. That was the event. That was the event. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, they use every lever they can, repetitively, meticulously, in order to get you to comply.
And they use their lawyers to paper it over to make it all look legitimate.
Hmm.
And they use loopholes in the existing Health Professions Act. So every province has a version of the Health Professions Act. And the college lawyers are expert. They've dissected the Health Professions Act. They've discovered every loophole. And they're experts at using that to wage warfare against any physician who gets out of line. So they control the physicians, they control their licenses. And as for example, 11,000 doctors in Alberta. And as you know, doctors are not very good at doing other things. Most doctors have spent their entire lives doing one thing. Usually they do it quite well, not always, but usually they're quite good at what they do, whether it's surgery, whether it's radiology, whether it's family medicine, whatever it is. So when you dangle the license and you say, the college says, well, we're going to take away your license and we're going to do it in a very nasty way, in a very abusive way. We're going to try to break you. And so if you want to keep your license, you'll do exactly what we say. You're going to bend the knee and, you're going to behave. That is the power that they have over physicians. They should not have that power. The college should be there only to protect patients from someone who's grossly incompetent or someone who's sexually abusing their patients or children. In fact, now we know that the college is actually protecting pedophiles in Alberta, in British Columbia. They're protecting child sex abusers. They're protecting child traffickers. They make sure that these people have their licenses, that their licenses are pristine, clean, that Alberta parents or BC parents are not made aware that these abusers are in the system, and they allow them to practice. They actually did that during the pandemic. They allowed several child sex abusers and child sex offenders and pornographers to, not only did they give them their licenses back after they had been arrested, but they allowed them to practice freely throughout the entire pandemic. That is what the college has turned into.
It's sickening. Do you mind if sorry, you go ahead there, Dr. Hodkinson. I want to ask a question, how we got to this position. So go ahead, first of all.
I was just going to contrast the way physicians like Dr. Makis and myself and others have been treated with how they handle physicians who are incompetent, who have failed on a standard of care. This is what typically happens. Some tragic event happens because of a physician failing on the expected standard of care. And after a prolonged period of time, which is rather perfunctory in terms of the evidence that's gathered, in particular, evidence from the individual, the aggrieved individual, they will then issue some statement to the aggrieved individual to say words to the effect that Dr. X recognizes this unfortunate event and has agreed to go to Seattle for 6 months for further training. End of story. There's no serious punishment for doing something terrible to a patient that should not have happened.
Right. And I mean,
that should be their regular day-to-day job. And they let physicians off the hook regularly.
And could that be as severe as death? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So somebody dies.
Bruce, you know what, Bruce, and let me just jump in to that point, because I can give you some numbers. And these numbers are well known in the medical community. So 98% of complaints made about doctors, now these are complaints usually made by patients, 98% of complaints never make it to a hearing. That includes every case of medical malpractice. So if 98% don't make it to a hearing, that means 98% get thrown out. They're not even heard by the college.
They don't even get to the college. Is that was your so they
they go through the complaints. They go through the complaints director,
Yeah.
and the complaint director sends it back and says, we're not proceeding to a hearing and there's no case here. And so 98% of medical malpractice complaints get thrown out by the college. You know what comprises the other 2%?
The ones against
Dr. Roger Hodkinson,
the whistleblowers,
doctors, whistleblowers who are targeted by the college. Even the child sex abusers do not get to go to a hearing, because I've actually I've put out 3 stories on child sex offenders in Alberta and British Columbia recently. They went viral internationally. I've studied these cases. I can tell you that when you go to the college site and look at their medical licenses of these child sex offenders who were arrested by the RCMP, 2 of them are in jail. The 3rd one was let go by the Alberta Crown prosecutors. When you look at the college website and you look under disciplinary proceedings, it says none in every single case. No disciplinary proceedings, which means there was no hearing.
Right.
Which means the college doesn't actually investigate child sex abusers. It protects them. It gives them their license, doesn't even proceed to a hearing. So the 2% of complaints that go to a hearing is doctors like Dr. Roger Hodkinson, Dr. Daniel Nagassi, Dr. Charles Hoff, Dr. Mark Trozy, Dr. Chris Shoemaker, Dr. Mary O'Connor, Dr. Crystal Lichku. I can go on, but these are the doctors that were targeted because they tried to protect their patients during the COVID-19 pandemic, because they wrote mask or vaccine exemption letters, because they try to treat their patients with ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or other early treatments, or because they tried to give informed consent about the COVID vaccines to their patients. These are the doctors targeted by the colleges in Canada. That's the 2% that they go after.
The 2% are the whistleblowers. Dr. Hodkinson, you had mentioned that this is basically a decade-long process of degradation of this power. So I want to ask you about the power. So who gave them the power to begin with? Where did that originate from? Was it a group of doctors that said, hey, let's create this organization? Or was it the corrupt AHS system that created this? Tell us what you know about that.
Well, I defer to Dr. Makis, who's studied this in much more detail than I have. William? Dr.
Makis?
Certainly. So when you go back to the various Health Professions Act that constituted the colleges, I'm aware of a Health Professions Act that passed in the 1980s, but there was a version of it in the 1970s, probably even in the 1960s. It was in this era, the 1960s, 1970s, where the provincial governments decided that they did not want to administrate medicine. They did not want to administrate engineering. They did not want to administrate nursing, pharmacy, dentistry. And so they gave these professions the ability to self-regulate. So it's called self-regulation. And you self-regulate by creating a college or a medical board in medicine composed of peers of other physicians, usually, experienced physicians who've been in high positions, heads of departments, deans of faculties of medicine, and so on. And you give them the ability to administer the practice of medicine in the province by issuing licenses to those who are qualified, by investigating complaints, and so on. So this is actually each provincial government constituted each college. And this goes back decades. Now, initially, that all sounds great on paper, and it probably worked quite well in the initial few years, as most things do. And then over time, the system was gamed by the bureaucrats. And so what you end up seeing is you end up seeing people on colleges that have hopped from one bureaucratic position to another. Usually these are people who don't see patients, or haven't seen patients in a long time. These are bureaucrats, and the bureaucracy in medicine has grown up like a cancer, not just over something like the health authorities like Alberta Health Services, but the colleges as well. And these become powerful positions, because imagine now that if you're sitting as the registrar of the college or the complaints director, and you have a buddy who's your lawyer who's administering everything, well, now you're in a position of power. Now the other bureaucrats will come to you. You become a network. You then become attractive to the pharmaceutical industry, for example. Maybe they'll bribe you.
Right.
Maybe they'll buy you a house somewhere. Like it's this bureaucracy has grown up like a cancer, in all the colleges in Canada. So fast forward 40, 50 years later, and I can tell you there is one family at the college right now, the top legal counsel, the senior legal counsels for the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Alberta, the Boyer family. Craig Boyer is the lead counsel who sabotaged my medical license, and he's the lawyer for the complaints director. So he controls directly all the licenses in Alberta, but also all the complaint proceedings. Well, he inherited his practice back around 2005 from his father, Donald Boyer, who was the lead counsel of the college the previous 40 years before that, going back into the 1970s. So now you have one family business that has really been the head counsels of the college for the last 50 years. I mean, it's a mafia family, and they're fully integrated with the other bureaucracies at Alberta Health Services and the Alberta Medical Association. But it ultimately, the responsibility comes back to the provincial governments. And you know what the provincial governments have done about these colleges over the last few decades and the corruption? Absolutely nothing.
Right. They just wash their hands of it, and they're just like, okay.
Because everyone benefits from the corruption.
Right.
Everyone benefits from silencing rebel doctors or doctors who won't play ball with the corrupt bureaucracies.
I'd like to comment upon the essence of what it means to be a professional. In essence, a professional regulates him or herself. That is the ethic that we live by. Mm-hmm. We are monitoring ourselves constantly to perform at the highest possible standard, serving society and not ourselves. That is the ethic that used to be lived by professionals until these colleges got progressively involved. Instead of our monitoring ourselves to make sure that we were always up to snuff, they took on the responsibility of ensuring that that was taking place. So you have all these ridiculous regulations, such as continuing medical education credits, that you have to go to this and that conference and read journals and whatever. Everyone knows in our game that that is gamed. You go to the conference, you check in, you have a nice time, you go home, you tick the box, done. And what did I learn? Dick. That is what happens on a regular basis. We should be regulating ourselves. We don't need anyone to look over our shoulders to make sure that that is so. When it seems like things are going sideways, and that an individual physician, they receive a complaint about a physician's performance, they should investigate that aggressively and make it public and make sure that everyone's aware that there are penalties for doing that kind of thing. That should be the total limit of what they do. Substantially less than right now.
Well,
Defending the public and letting the profession manage itself.
right. So that sort of answers my question. My next question was there any benefit? And you've already sort of answered that, but is there any benefit to the people of Alberta, to the citizens that live here and pay for these services? It seems like it's exactly opposite, and they're not protecting the patients at all. They're protecting their criminality or their cartel, is what it seems like, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, when you look at this and you think, okay, the college should be protecting patients from medical malpractice or from, you know, someone who's, let's say, grossly incompetent. Well, look at Dr. Roger Hodkinson case or my case. There's no patient issue at all.
Right.
How is it that we are subjected to the most extreme proceedings at the college where there's no patient issue? Right? It just shows you that the college has been weaponized to go after you for free speech, to go after you for other things that have nothing to do with patients and patient care.
Basically, they become servants of the state.
Well,
They are no longer thinking independently.
right.
They are so imbued with wokeism that they must follow the orders that's coming from on high. It doesn't have to be written down. It could be an anonymous telephone call. It could be any way of communicating, that they understand the way to please their political masters. They're all looking for promotions themselves in the colleges. They're trying to get one further rung up the ladder so that they can brown nose the guy on top of them. That is why they're there. That is ticking off the boxes on a CV. And if you want that your career to progress, you don't piss off the guy that's on top of you. That's the general operating principle. And so you get this buy-in, this conformity to whatever the prevailing consensus is from government. You don't have to be told that explicitly. You get it because your career depends upon it. So it's a bunch of sycophants who are trying to run herd on the rest of the profession. If the rest of the profession was told legitimately as to what their opinion of the college is, it would be a massive, overwhelming rejection. They don't want to do that, obviously.
So sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I just want to jump in. I want to also clarify that the bureaucracies in Canada, the healthcare bureaucracies, and the people who rise to the top, my observation is that over the last 8 years, that these bureaucrats are exclusively loyal to the federal government, to the Trudeau Liberal government. They don't necessarily have loyalties provincially. And so that's why you end up in a situation where Jason Kenney's very conservative provincial government rolled over, and we effectively had a pandemic response in Alberta that might as well have been run by Justin Trudeau himself.
Right.
Lockdowns, masking of children, rollout of vaccines to as babies as young as 6 months old. Doctors persecuted for writing mask exemption letters, vaccine exemption letters, the complete ban on early treatments of COVID-19, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and so on. We had that in Alberta. Persecution of Christian pastors by Alberta Health Services. We had that in the most conservative province in Canada. And these were measures that if you said, well, Justin Trudeau and his cabinet implemented these measures, you'd be absolutely correct, because that's exactly what those measures were. So the bureaucrats, people again have to understand, the bureaucrats are not necessarily loyal to local small politicians. These people have obviously a lot of power. They're going to be loyal to higher powers. And usually in Canada, you have to be loyal to the Trudeau government, or you never make it to that position in the first place, because you have to be approved by other bureaucrats who already have declared their loyalty. And so this is the situation. And we know that the Trudeau government is loyal to international institutions like the WHO, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum. You see, Justin Trudeau is trying to outdo everyone in being a globalist and making Canada the first post-national state. And so that is how these pandemic responses have trickled down through the colleges, for example, down to the doctors who basically have to keep their mouth shut. And 4 years in, Alberta doctors have to still keep their mouth shut about the vaccines, the pandemic response, and all of it.
So
there's a general operating principle that pervades not just medicine, but just about the whole of life when it comes to introducing something new and different. And the principle is this: don't trouble me with due diligence. Don't trouble me with the time and money that's required to show that what you're proposing works or is worthwhile. No, the general operating principle is very simple. Everyone else is doing it, so it must be right.
Right.
And it gets rubber stamped.
So you bring up a really good point. Now, with the College of Physicians, everybody's obviously trying to take themselves to the next rung and trying to climb that ladder. So are you thinking, and this is putting the puzzle pieces together, so are you saying that the College of Physicians was potentially, and I'll just say it that way, but potentially was directed to tell the physicians on how to act, and then they instructed doctors on what
Totally.
not to do? Yeah.
Totally. Nothing written down, no
Right.
emails, just a general understanding, maybe even a telephone call, a drink somewhere. Absolutely. A nudge and a wink. You get the message. Do what I say.
So did the college, did you believe that the college instructed AHS on their practices, or was that another high up that actually called the CEO, which is Verna Yu at the time, called her and said, this is how you're going to then deal with this?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of ways to look at it. My experience is that it is the Alberta Health Services executives that have the most power in the province, like a province of Alberta. The reason being is they handle the money.
Right.
There's not a lot of money at the college. The college will charge its members $2,000 annual license fee, which the 11,000 doctors have to pay. So you could do the math. That ends up being something like $20 million a year. Well, AHS handles $20 billion a year.
Right.
So there's 1,000-fold difference in the money that flows through the hands of AHS executives and AHS directors and bureaucrats compared to the money that flows through the college. So my experience is that the bureaucracy, now you could say, well, they're all friends. They all meet at the same country clubs, tennis clubs, golf clubs, they play golf together and so on. So you could say that they're on similar levels. But my experience is that Alberta Health Services really runs the show and then gives instructions to the colleges, to the Alberta Medical Association, and so on, as to how healthcare should be run in the province of Alberta, because that's where the money is.
Bruce, they can get at you three different ways. They can interfere with the granting of hospital privileges or denying them. The faculty, the academic appointments run by the university is another way of getting at you. And the third way of getting at you is through your license, so-called, it's a permit now, by the way. We're no better than plumbers. We are permitted. It's a very important distinction here.
Yeah.
We are now permitted to practice medicine. We don't have a license anymore. Do you get the general messaging here? The use of language to control you. So here's the point. They can get at you with any one or all three of those different ways. Let me give you a specific example. Dr. Prink, a GP, had his clinic in the Devon hospital. There would have been a call from AHS to the administrator of Devon Hospital, totally without record. I'm just supposing this. I've got no way of knowing it definitely happened, but this is the way it likely did happen, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of this guy. Get rid of this guy. Click. And guess what? They got rid of him. He had to move his clinic out of the hospital. Well, there's a delicious endpoint to this story. Not only did the college have to drop their complaints against him, he wrote them more exemption letters than anyone else in Canada, by the way. But he moved his clinic to a nearby town, Beaumont. And guess what? Because of his stand, he got so busy, he had to close any new patients registering with him.
Well done.
So yeah, his plan B ended up being better than plan A. But the point is, that's how they operate: clandestine, secret meetings, secret calls, control. Gotcha.
Okay, Dr. Makis, now you mentioned this before, and I'm just trying to piece it all together for my brain. Is that so? Are these colleges then getting kickbacks from AHS? I mean, they are a cartel. They're here for money. That's why they're in business, right? So if they toe the line, and if they hold Dr. Makis and Dr. Hodkinson for being a whistleblower, and they destroy your lives, is there a win for them on that?
So this comes back to the idea of bribery in medicine and what forms of bribery in medicine are there. And it's not necessarily money.
Mm-hmm.
Because most doctors have money. You're not going to be able to buy them off with an extra $1,000 or $10,000 here and there. But a lot of it is career advancement. A lot of it is academic promotions. A lot of it is career building. And so you'll find a lot of these positions on the college council, for example. I know the couple. I know one of the couples on the college council. One of them was actually my student, Dr. Christopher Fung, and his dad. I worked with his dad in the Brandon Regional Hospital in Brandon, Manitoba. Well, he and his wife are on the college council now. His wife is woke, which means he is woke. Right. But for them, being on the college council is a career building thing. They get to put it on their CV. In the future, they might end up being directors of a hospital. They might end up being a senior member on the AHS directorship for the zone. They might be a zone director one day, or he might end up being a faculty head in radiology because he's a radiologist. She's a family doctor, so they might end up being a high position at the university.
And guess how you get, as we call it, guess how you get on the council? You are voted on the council by your peers. Well, the only people that have any interest in voting for council members are themselves so woke. It's a guaranteed outcome.
You have to be part of the cult.
And then, of course, you pad the council, the voting members on the council, with people who aren't physicians. You got the Dean of Medicine in Edmonton and Calgary, and so on, general public, medical students. You pad it with people that are guaranteed going to salute in your general direction. Mm-hmm. Just like pulling a lever in a casino. It's a guaranteed outcome.
You have to think of it, Bruce, almost as what happens when you become, let's say, a made member of the mafia? Well, you then have to do what the mafia tells you to do, right? Because now you're one of them. Right. And so you will reap the benefits of that. So, at the college, you might have a cushy position at the college. You collect a couple of $100,000 a year of salary. You don't have to see any patients. I mean, it's the easiest job in the world. But there's a price that comes with that easiest job in the world. And the price is when the phone call is made and you have to commit a crime at the college, then you take that phone call and you commit that crime because that is what you agreed to when you were elevated to that position. And so, you're part of a mafia and you have to do as you're told. All of these top positions in healthcare in the province, whether you're the Dean of Medicine, whether you're the department chief of oncology or radiology, whether you're an AHS zone medical director, whether you're the college registrar, college complaint director, college counsel, you don't get to those positions unless you've been vetted by the top layers, by the elites. And once they've made sure that you're going to obey and do what you're told, then you get that position, and then you have to execute their commands as you're told.
Right.
And so it operates like, any bureaucracy, really. And any sort of organized crime mafia, it operates the same way, same principles.
So William and I like to whine a lot about what's happening, but whining doesn't solve a goddamn thing. The system is going to continue. It's entrenched. Unless, if I could borrow a term from Paul Alexander, it has to be burnt down to the studs. No tinkering. It has to be totally demolished and rebuilt along the lines of what we would call traditional professional freedoms. And I would make the point, I'm on a soapbox now, but I'll keep it short.
Yeah, go.
And any thought of dismantling the province, dismantling the College of Physicians and Surgeons in this province and other provinces, without total political control at the top, is deemed to failure. It will not start. The only way to get rid of this tyrannical regime is to have an independent Republic of Alberta. That is not a figment of some fanatic. That is a very doable outcome. Remember, René Lévesque got within 1 percentage point of Quebec being an independent country. If we were to take control of everything that happened within our borders, we could redefine democracy, not just involving professional regulation, but in terms of the courts, the police, the universities in particular. We could redefine all those institutions along traditional lines and be a beacon for the rest of the world. Unless we do that, we're all pissing in the wind.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Now, I just want your opinions, both of you. So the leader that we have in place right now, Danielle Smith, I know that that's not her focus, and I wish that I could trust, who she is and where she is as a position. But I don't think that she can get there without obviously some encouragement. I say, we need to hold the reins tight. I think that she should be able to. We should at least be able to talk about it. We should at least be able to have some sort of a vote about it, and she needs to bring that forward. Otherwise, we need to burn that to the ground as well. Don't you think?
If I was to have a private conversation one-on-one with our premier, I would say this: Danielle, you're a very smart, ambitious woman. Subtext, totally without principles. And I won't go down that rabbit hole, but you're a very smart, ambitious woman. You have 2 career paths in front of you. You can continue being the Premier of Alberta until you decide to do something else with your career, constantly banging heads with Ottawa and never really winning, just getting a few scraps thrown your way.
Right.
Or you could be the first female president of the Republic of Alberta. Which do you think is more attractive, Danielle? For an ambitious woman.
I like that. That has a good ring to it. I do like the Republic of Alberta idea, and really, I think you've nailed it. I mean, we do need to, these institutions, I've said this a number of times, is that unfortunately they're going to have to be built from, the ashes. They have to.
Let me expand on what I just said.
Yeah, please do.
In order to achieve that, you start small, not grandiose. You start within Alberta. You start in Alberta. all kinds of ways of achieving it, top down, bottom up, charismatic leader needs to emerge, etc., etc., etc. Someone like René Lévesque. But here's the point. What started on the tarmac at Atchison with those truckers, that was a lightning rod eventually internationally for the freedom movement. I was there on that tarmac with the truckers when they left, and I was with them in Ottawa, as you know. But here's the wonderful conclusion that could result in. That initiation, that declaring the enemy, that intolerance of wokeism, if we were to become independent, it would not just be the happiest, most prosperous place on earth for the citizens of that country, of Alberta, but much more importantly, it could be a beacon for the rest of the world that you really can reinvent democracy along the traditional lines. What an intoxicating future that would be.
Well, I'm hoping that she sees this, because that message, I think, resonates with a lot of Albertans, and I hope that we can have these conversations. So I bless you for saying this, because it's important that we have these conversations and we get it out there, because more people need to be talking about it, and I think it has to be an option at least. At least.
Bruce, I want to mention one thing. Things might come to a head more quickly than people realize, because we've got the WHO pandemic treaty breathing down our neck, barreling down at us in the next few months. We know that they are looking to ratify it sometime in May. We know that the U.S. election is also this year, which could bring all kinds of chaos. Some of it anticipated, maybe some of it not anticipated. But in terms of the WHO pandemic treaty specifically, that is a direct attack on our sovereignty and our control of our healthcare system and our ability to direct a future pandemic, which the WHO can declare unilaterally, along with lockdowns, mandatory vaccination, and the works. So things might come to a head. Now, I have heard rumblings from this government that if that were to pass, that Alberta would essentially declare itself sovereign in respect to healthcare and the administration of healthcare and so on, that is a provincial jurisdiction, that Alberta would not recognize the authority of the World Health Organization. That could lead to some interesting battles and interesting situations. But I think we might be faced with some very difficult scenarios even this year. And so, I'm always telling whoever will listen, and there are people within this government who are listening and who have asked my opinion and advice and so on. And my advice is go after these bureaucracies now. Don't wait. What's the point of waiting? Dissolve the colleges, constitute a brand new medical board, for example, and invite the healthcare workers from all over Canada, United States, and say you can practice with freedom. You can practice abiding by your Hippocratic oath with all the medical ethics that you were brought up with. We will protect bodily autonomy. We will protect informed consent. Just open that up. Just do it. And look.
I would expand that opportunity. The little, sucking it to Ottawa every way you can. I would expand that into, we don't give a tinker's damn about the Canada Health Act. We are going private in Alberta.
You could do that.
See you in court.
You could do that. Absolutely. Just blow it wide open.
Right.
There's no time for, like Dr. Hodkinson said, there's no time for tinkering and playing around with lawyers and trying to see, well, what might be palatable to this group and that group. You got to blow this thing wide open.
Whenever there's a crisis, there's an opportunity.
Well, we certainly have been heading towards a crisis. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about hospitals in general today, but to me, they're a tragedy, right? I mean, if your leg is not falling off, I try to tell my family, don't go to the hospital unless you really, really need to. There's it's dangerous.
I
Honestly,
would
what's going on?
I would advocate for everyone listening, when you're faced with someone begging for you to support a hospital foundation, you look them straight in the eye and say this: I'm not giving you a goddamn nickel, because every nickel I give you takes the pressure off the government to buy what they should have done in the first place.
Mhm.
They need to put their own house in order and operate it much more efficiently, which is certainly possible. So I don't give the stollery with those bleeding, pleading eyes on the side of the bus. I don't give them a goddamn nickel.
Absolutely, we shouldn't. I mean,
Our healthcare system is crumbling, and I mean it's been crumbling for years. It just seems to get worse and worse every year, and it's not going to get better because we're not addressing the problems, we're not addressing the corruption, the bureaucracy. So you can't expect the healthcare system to be better just by throwing money at it. That's what Jason Kenney did. That's what Rachel Notley did. All they did was throw more money at the system. I think when Rachel Notley was premier, she added $1 billion to the Alberta Health Services budget every single year. And that money went straight into a black hole, probably some offshore bank accounts as well. But the money just disappears into a black hole and it doesn't get to the front line.
Let's remember the top line of every senior bureaucrat's contract. It's written in onion ink, so it can't be seen unless it's heated.
okay.
And the top line would read exactly this: there shall be no headlines. Use other people's money, period. Solve whatever union contracts you want. Throw money at it because it's not mine, it's the taxpayers. But there will be no headlines. Have I got your attention yet? Your pension depends upon it. Oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. Yes, of course. 3 bags full, sir. You know, that's how every single senior bureaucrat operates. They're ticking off the days until their bloody pension.
Right. I mean, one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I'll quickly ask this, and then we probably need to finish up here. But when a doctor becomes a doctor, when you go through the system, we talk. Many people talk about the oath. Is there an actual process of giving this oath? I mean, do people even do that anymore, or is that why we've gotten into this situation? Is that people don't really care?
Well, I can tell you, in medical school, I think it's the second year of medical school, they have this thing called the white coat ceremony, and so you get this little white coat for the first time, and to make you feel like you're going to be a doctor, and you recite the Hippocratic Oath, and it's a nice ceremony. It's a nice ceremony for the families, but that's in the second or third year of medical school, and so by the time you finished and you've been in practice for a few years, I think for a lot of physicians, unfortunately, that ends up being a distant memory.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're working in a system that's completely corrupt, that corruption rubs off on everybody. It's very demoralizing. It's very demoralizing for you to try to do your work when you've got 5 managers hovering over you, buzzing around you, making your life more and more complicated. It grinds on you, even if you come to medicine with the best of intentions.
Right.
So
we joined a profession, Bruce, that was intended to serve society. And we were the most trusted sector of society, maybe even more so than the church. You could close the door with your doctor and talk about anything you wanted. We'd get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd clean out a belly full of shit. We treat a CEO and an addict exactly the same way. That's how we were trained years ago. We were a servant of society. And because of that commitment, we were given that title, doctor, which had tremendous cachet and respect. It's changed now. It's very, very different now. The current crop of medical students are going into it for the money and the title and the respect. It's bankable.
Right.
That's why they're going into medicine now. An intellectual challenge. It's nothing to do with society anymore. It's about the money.
Right. Right. And they've been so indoctrinated that they're not coming out with any critical thinking anyway, right?
Well, there is critical thinking, but there's an overlay of wokeism that is dominant. That's more important than critical. If wokeism contradicts critical thinking, guess who wins?
Well, I guess you gotta be looking good as far as the College of Physicians is concerned, right? I mean,
But look, Bruce, look at how many doctors rolled over
Yep.
for all the abuses and all the unethical, behavior during the pandemic. The nurses did much better. In fact, I can think of every other healthcare profession other than physicians who did much better than doctors in terms of abiding by their ethics, medical ethics, standing up for their patients. Doctors did the worst, absolutely the worst. 99.99% rolled over, took their shots, and kept their mouth shut. And that's where we're at. We always look at the freedom movement. We look around and we realize we can count on the doctors who are speaking up. We can count them maybe on two hands, maybe three hands, right? Out of 100,000 doctors in Canada, for example, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of doctors in the United States, how is it possible that 99.99% of doctors are still keeping their mouth shut, still pushing the vaccines, despite knowing that there's a tsunami of injuries and deaths, that children are dying from the vaccines, that pregnant women are dying from the vaccines, and yet 4 years in, the doctors are still keeping their mouth shut? It's an embarrassment. The profession has been destroyed, in my opinion. The profession has been completely destroyed.
There's a wonderful statement. It's not original. I don't know who said it, so I'm plagiarism here, anonymous. What's happened over the last 4 years was a destructive solution to an imaginary problem. And the same can be said for the climate hoax.
Yeah.
Destructive solutions to imaginary problems. No scientific basis whatsoever.
Well, they'll continue to roll on this tyrannical trajectory, whether, until we say no. But going back to the doctors, I want to say one last thing, if I could, is that the doctors, and you mentioned the nurses did much better, but we all felt like they had us by our balls, right? I mean, they had us in debt. You were based, your position, your job, your business was dependent on, continuing to go. And I'm sure the doctors all felt this way as well, is that if they said anything, they would have them by the nuts, right? I mean, that's the perception that I have anyway.
Well, yes, but that was the case in every profession, because every profession faced the vaccine mandates, and you saw police officers standing up, you saw firefighters standing up, fighting their unions, you saw nurses standing up or just quit. I mean, nurses quit by the thousands.
Yeah.
You saw pharmacists standing up, you saw paramedics standing up, you saw some military people standing up. How is it possible that the doctors are the only mandated profession that didn't stand up? And in fact, the doctors were the one profession that could have survived financially, standing up to this kind of tyranny better than other professions, and yet they did the worst.
They failed.
They rolled over. They failed. The profession failed. I think the medicine is one of the biggest failures of the pandemic, and we've lost the trust. We've lost trust from the public. That trust, I don't think, is going to be regained back. Probably not in my lifetime. No. I'd be surprised. So it just, I still have no explanation for this, why doctors did so poorly during
that loss of trust cuts across the whole of society, not just within the profession, but in the workplace, in politics, with the media, within a family. trust is the cement that holds society together. And when trust disappears, you have a quivering person in the palm of your hand that you can manipulate any way you want. And that's one of the principal ways they succeeded.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate both of your inputs. You know, sort of digging into the College of Physicians and medical practice in general. It has been really interesting to hear your thoughts. Alberta, I think we are poised, I think, at the precipice of perhaps a destruction, but obviously on the other side of that is a rebuilding. And I appreciate you guys being here and sharing that information. So a couple of things before we cut out here. You're both, as far as I understand, both part of the wellness company, and they're bringing great products and great. I know that there's emergency kits that they're selling, and some fantastic products to help with real ingredients that are helping people moving forward. Now, if I can just touch on what you're up to, Dr. Hodkinson, right now. You're at MedMal Doctors, and is that a business that you're working on right now? Is that correct?
Well, yes. In general, I'm a medical entrepreneur, and I'm running a few medical businesses. Some bread and butter, but the one that I'm really excited about is below the radar right now. I'm chairman of an American biotechnology company that's about to launch a technology that would prevent another pandemic based on fear. The notorious PCR, so-called PCR test, that needs to be replaced with a much superior way of verifying the accuracy of results. And I would be enormously happy if our technology helps to prevent another pandemic of fear. It should be ready for market by the fall.
Oh, well, I look forward to having an update and seeing more about that. And Dr. William Makis, I know that you are so busy putting articles out and talking to obviously other podcasts and getting this information out and helping other people. Is there any other way that you want us to direct people to find you?
Well, certainly people can find me on Twitter at MakisMD. People can find my articles, medical articles, and interviews, videos from around the world on my Substack, makismd.substack.com. I'll be speaking at the International Crisis Summit at the CPAC in Washington in a few weeks. I will also be doing a live show in Calgary on March 16th with Canadians for Truth with Jamie Salé and Theo Fleury, Fire and Ice show. This is a live event. It's already sold out, I've been told. So I'm excited and looking forward to that. And I'll be setting fire to Alberta Health Services and the college, with some very interesting information again. So so people can support me through my Substack. That's sort of my focus right now is to continue putting out quality information sources for people who are looking, vaccine injured people who are looking for ways to help themselves and so on, and just exposing the ongoing corruption and fraud having to do with even in the COVID literature, the COVID vaccine injury literature, long COVID. There's this fraud. It just is never ending. It just keeps going. So people can find me in those places, Twitter and Substack.
People should know, Bruce, that Canada is punching way above its weight internationally. With people like Dr. Makis, his subscriber base is incredible. Given our population, the ratio of people standing up, ratio to population, we are punching way above our weight.
Well, I think that we are fighters. I especially think that here in Alberta. I know, in my circle people that I've talked to. Leighton Gray, one of the lawyers that I love talking to. He's that guy is one heck of a patriot, and he is on the mat every day, like he's taking them down. I do want to bring some attention, though, Dr. Makis, to this latest post. I think you just pinned it recently about vaccine injury treatment and the fasting for 48 to 72 hours. And anybody that's interested, this looks really detailed and a lot of great information for anybody that's hoping to obviously heal from their vaccine injury, and it's potentially looks like a great article. So I want to bring some more attention to that. But gentlemen, if there's nothing else, I want to say thank you very much for joining me, and you're inspirational, both of you, for bringing some amazing information to the people and sharing and standing up. God bless you both. For
Churchill's
helping
victory
humanity.
sign.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Stand by here while I do our outro, and I will see you on the other side. God bless everyone. Thanks for watching, and share. Thank you for watching Unscrew the News. If you've enjoyed our podcast or educated from it, give us a thumbs up. All the blessings, and make the world a better place.